All right, back here again on the Sort of Sports Podcast, episode 151. And we're doing this podcast a little bit in between of each series. So right now, the Thunder are up 3-1 over the Timberwolves, and the Pacers are up 2-1 over the Knicks. So recording this pod Tuesday afternoon. Yesterday was Memorial Day. Hope everybody had a great Memorial Day weekend. And let's talk a little bit of NBA basketball. And then I actually did go see a movie over the weekend, so we're going to discuss that real quick. Going to be a shorter pod. I don't even know if we're going to crack 25 minutes. I just kind of wanted to get some thoughts out there. We're in the middle of two series that, the winners of each will be going to the NBA Finals, so that's obviously very exciting. Let's start off with Timberwolves Knicks because, Timberwolves Knicks. Thunder Timberwolves. It was the orange and blue messing me up because I kind of thought the series was over after the first two games. It just looked like the Thunder had the Timberwolves completely beat. Anthony Edwards was not playing as well as I think we all would like for him to play. And it was kind of everything I predicted when I saw this series. It just looked like the Thunder had way too much they could throw at the Timberwolves. It just looked like the Timberwolves could match them, especially defensively. Everything the Thunder do defensively, Minnesota was just not prepared for. And as much as I like Anthony Edwards, it didn't even look like he was prepared for as big of a challenge as this is going to be for him. And then they blew him out in game three. It was a 40-point victory for the Timberwolves. There was some stat that's like no team has ever lost by 40 or more in the playoffs and then won the NBA Finals. So the Thunder are going to have to be historically great to win the final, which I'm like, that's a fun stat, but like, is it really that big of a deal? Like, maybe. And we'll talk about that when we talk about Knicks Pacers, because I am starting to see some hope for a team that can maybe beat the Thunder. And it's not the Knicks, spoiler alert. But I think the thing is, after last night's game in which the Thunder took a 3-1 lead, I just think they're better. And this series is just not that interesting to me. I think it's essentially been marketed as SGA versus Ant, but I don't know if I'm really that intrigued by that, because I think they're in such wildly different teams. Not that the Timberwolves are a bad team, but like SGA has been playing well this series. Okay, I'm not going to deny that, but I'm saying SGA isn't what scares me about the Thunder. It's the Thunder that scare me about the Thunder. And maybe this is me being an SGA hater, but I'm just saying he is the best player on that team, no doubt about it. He's very good. But he doesn't, make me... I'm not fearful of losing to SGA. I'm fearful of losing to the Thunder. They just have so much they can throw at you. And the Pacers are similar, right? Halliburton is the best player on the Pacers, but I am more afraid of the Pacers as a unit as I am as Halliburton as an individual. Whereas the Knicks, I'm more terrified of Brunson as an individual than I am of the Knicks themselves. Does that make sense? I know this is kind of all like a fugazi. Like, none of this really makes sense. It's just up in my imagination. Like, well, what do you fear? This is very first take of me. But that's kind of how I feel about it when it comes to the different players and the teams right now. And that's why I think it's interesting is we're looking at a Pacers team that is built a lot more, I think, like the Thunder, and a Knicks team that's built a lot more like the Timberwolves. And we're seeing the Timberwolves Knicks style of building not work as well as this, hey, we can go 10-12 deep, we can play a lot of different ways we want to defensively and even offensively. You're not really sure who you exactly have to watch out for. That style has been winning more games, at least in these conference finals, because Knicks and Timberwolves are both, we got our main guy, Anthony Edwards, Jalen Brunson. We rely on him, and then we got everybody that plays off of him, and they play well too. And, Mike Conley, Josh Hart, Karl Anthony Towns, Julius Randle, like we have these other guys who are all really good, but they're not Anthony Edwards, Jalen Brunson. Whereas, like, Halliburton and SGA are both awesome. But, especially the Halliburton, the whole choke thing, that was awesome. But Aaron Nesmith was the biggest reason they won game one, right? And for the Thunder, they've had games where it's like game 7 against the Nuggets, I would say that was Jalen Williams was the best player in that game. And having that ability in the playoffs is the reason we're seeing these teams go far. And that's why when we talk about Pacers Knicks here in a bit, I think the Pacers are gonna win this. I really do, especially after watching these last few games. And I know the Knicks won game 3, but game 4 is tonight, and I kind of just think the Pacers are gonna win. I think they're gonna take a 3-1 lead too, just like the Thunder did. It's like mirroring each other. That's really all I have to say about the Thunder Timberwolves series, because I do want to kind of move in an overall discussion before we shift into Pacers Knicks, and that's the way. So the Eastern Conference Finals this year has had the highest rating for the ratings for the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't think it was the conference finals in general. I think it was the Eastern Conference Finals since 2018, which, for those of you who don't remember, was Celtics, Cavs. That's 2018 LeBron when he was going off in the playoffs. The LeBron that a lot of guys who are like LeBron lovers will say was the best playoff LeBron you've ever seen. The Cavs team whose second best player was Tristan Thompson, probably. Like, it was like J.R. Smith, Tristan Thompson, Kyle Korver, George Hill. It's not a very good roster if you look back on it. Kevin Love was still there, but was he hurt or was he just not playing well? One of the two. And so not a very good roster. And LeBron got that team to the finals. That was the time they went 7 games with the Pacers in round 1. Which every once in a while I see a post that's something along the lines of like, let's all remember Pacers Victor Oladipo. And I'm like, yeah, that was awesome. Before he got injured, he was incredible in the Pacers, and it felt like they got their guy. So I'm happy that the Pacers have found something here with Halliburton. Once again, the Kings got to be just like, ugh. I feel bad for the Kings fans. But anyways, it's had the highest ratings in 7 years, right? And I was thinking about, okay, look at the Eastern Conference Finals ever since then, right? So 2019, it's Bucks Raptors. We have a very young Bucks team that would end up in 2 years becoming the 2021 Bucks, through some different moves. But that was like Giannis's, I think, first real year of like, hey, I think we can be a contender with the Bucks. And then the Raptors obviously ended up winning, and that was Kawhi's great run they went on. And then 2020, the Eastern Conference Finals wasn't it? I think it was Celtics Heat. Yeah, so the Celtics were back in it, and the Heat ended up winning, going to the finals, because there was a period there it looked like we might get Celtics Lakers in the bubble, which was really interesting. 2021, it was that Hawks-Bucks series where it's like, hey, this is fun, the Hawks are here, but like the Bucks are better, and the Bucks were better. And then 2022 conference finals was Celtics Heat again, and Celtics ended up coming up with the win there, going to the finals, lose to the Warriors. Then 2023, it was Celtics Heat again, and the Heat ended up winning, going to the going to the NBA Finals against the Nuggets and losing. And then 2024, it was Pacers Celtics. You look at all these conference finals, other than 2021, it's had the Celtics in it. I just think it's interesting. And apparently, the Knicks fan base, and granted, it's a much larger city than Boston, has really showed up in the viewership. And I also want to state, I think a big piece of why we're seeing higher ratings is because while Celtics Heat was fun because they just kept facing each other, I think they've done a really good job of marketing Knicks Pacers, and they've done it in a way which I would like to see the NBA market things more, where they've relied on teams' history and legacy and identity when marketing this series. And what I mean by that is the NFL does a really good job of teams having an identity, right? There is a vibe to the Baltimore Ravens that is different from the vibe of the Buffalo Bills. Just overall as a franchise forever, right? The fan base feels different. The team feels different. If I told you you're going to be the coach of the Buffalo Bills in, any time period, it just is going to feel different than being the coach of the Ravens, right? Because it's a different city, because they have a different history. Each team has an identity to it. Now, there's some teams that have less identity than others, right? The Jaguars don't have a lot of identity. They haven't been around that long. Same thing with the Texans. But a team like the Packers have a very strong sense of identity, have a very strong legacy in what you feel like they are, You don't even have to be that successful to have a very strong identity. Like, I think, the Colts aren't exactly an exceptionally successful franchise, but they have a strong identity, I would say. The Lions have a very strong identity, not a successful franchise. But even before they were good, you had an concept of how the Lions felt as a team. And once again, this is me very much like, I'm doing like sports philosophy here. I mean, like, this is all up in the air. This is somebody could be like, that doesn't make any sense. And I'd be like, well, I am just completely making this up. But this is just how I feel. The vibes of those teams is different. And I think the NBA doesn't do that as well. I think the NBA does a poor job of making it clear how different fan bases and different teams have different identities. And what I mean by that is, remember the whole Heat culture thing? That was really fun, right? Because the team and identity had a feel to it. I think the Warriors, when both the KD super team and like the strength in numbers 73-9 squad had a clear vibe, and so did LeBron's Cavs then. Like, those teams had a real identity and a real vibe to them, and the NBA marketed that, but the other teams around them really didn't seem to. I think the Rockets did with Harden and Chris Paul, or before that with Harden and Dwight Howard. I think the Raptors did with DeMar and Kyle Lowry. But past that, they didn't really do a good job of marketing those other teams. Remember, like the Lob City Clippers, right? They weren't the most successful team, but everyone knows who the Lob City Clippers are. They had a feel, they had a vibe, right? They had a vision for what that team was going to be. And I look at the way they've marketed Pacers Knicks, and they went very strong on that. They've really played into the history between these two teams, even though, I mean, they really haven't had a lot of history since the late 90s. Maybe you could argue early 2000s, but really the late 90s, right? And so it's really cool to lean into that, because they could have just been like, oh, it's the Pacers, and, you know, they were good last year, and this is the first time really since Paul George left that they've been consistently good. That would have been the easy pitch. But they leaned into Reggie Miller, and they've leaned into almost a little bit of like the Ron Artest, Jermaine O'Neal years, where because they're physical and they're kind of a tough, annoying team. Which Reggie, I know, is still on some of those squads, but I'm saying Reggie Miller to me is like the late 90s. And then even though he's on the Jermaine O'Neal, Ron Artest squad for like early 2000s, it's just more Ron Artest, Jermaine O'Neal's team. I don't know. It's just in my mind. That's a lot of NBA Live 05 factoring in here. I used to be lobbing it up from Reggie Miller to Jermaine O'Neal. But they've really leaned into that with the Pacers, like a real history. It's not just the last 10 years of history. And the Knicks, I think, are the reason they're doing that, because you have to with the Knicks. It would feel wrong if you were just talking about Carmelo Anthony. Especially when it's like, Melo was fun in New York, but it was never really as successful as they thought it was going to be, right? And you have to lean into that like 90s Knicks, because that's the peak of the Knicks other than the 70s. You have to lean into 90s Knicks. And I think they've even alluded to some 70s Knicks talk, because that's the last time they won the finals was in 1973. Like, this is a long time. It's been over 50 years since the biggest franchise in the NBA has won the finals. That's bonkers. That's crazy. That's absolutely absurd. Because I've talked about it before. There's every city has like one pro sports team that they truly love the most. And I think some it's more arguable than others, but like, as someone who's been in Cleveland, because I go to college in Cleveland, the Browns are the team. Guardians are popular, Cavs are popular, don't get me wrong, but the Browns are the team. The Guardians don't reach that level. If the Browns win, it's like boom. Like, it is absurd. And would it be awesome if the Guardians won the World Series and people go crazy? Yes. But if the Browns won the Super Bowl, it would be next level. I think some of those people would feel like they had heaven on earth. And just for certain cities, certain teams are just like the team. I always felt like with Boston, right? I think it's the Red Sox. Like, to me, the Red Sox are Boston's biggest team. It seems to be the one that's like the one. Granted, I guarantee when the Patriots are really good, it may have shifted, but the Red Sox always feel like the one, because like when the Red Sox are really good, it just feels like it's everywhere. Philly, it's the Eagles, right? Like, the Eagles are the one. And so a lot of cities, it's usually NFL. It's very rare that it's NBA, MLB in some cities, but for the most part, I think some it's hockey, right? Like for some cities, hockey is the big one. But like for Tampa Bay, it's definitely not the Rays; it's the Bucks. And I do think I'd have a much better concept of this if I lived in the city, right? But for Miami, like the Marlins, I just never get the vibe that the Marlins are as beloved as the Dolphins, just based off what you see, you know, and the way they're presented. It's just not. And part of the reason I'm saying this is the NFL just way better at making it feel like a team is a part of the city? Because it's all just perception is reality here. Is none of this really true? You know, are the Guardians really as popular as the Browns? I just don't realize it. It just feels like the Browns are more popular because the NFL does that good of a job. Not sure. The Knicks are the NBA's one. Like, their big one. Like, the Knicks are New York's team. And I don't think it'll ever change. Because they've been terrible. Like, pretty terrible. They've been pretty terrible 50 years. I I would say they've had a pretty terrible 20 years because they were good in the 90s. And once again, Blood in the Garden, an excellent book all about the 90s Knicks. But they've been pretty bad ever since the 2000s on, and they had a couple moments where it felt like it was going to get better with Carmelo. I remember that 2017 roster with Courtney Lee, Derrick Rose, Joakim Noah, Melo, and Kristaps. Really felt like it was going to click, and it obviously didn't. The Knicks have come a very long way from that, and I'm really glad the NBA's leaned into that because this is a really special team for the NBA, and I'm glad they're really marketing it the way they should. And I think the Pacers are really vibing with the city of Indianapolis. Like, Indiana is a huge basketball state. I mean, the movie Hoosiers literally set there. Indiana is supposed to be like the basketball state. The Hoosiers and like the college team, and obviously with Bobby Knight back in the 80s, they were super, super successful. And Indiana basketball has definitely fallen off. I'd like to see them have a return to being successful. But you look at it right now, they got Caitlin Clark in the WNBA. And the Fever are they're the big deal in the WNBA. Obviously, there's other players and other teams that are big deals. Like, you look at the Sparks, they got a decent amount of stars. The Sky obviously do too. And of course, Wilson and the Aces are a big deal. And now they got Beckers down in Dallas. Like, the WNBA is building something over there. But the Fever are the biggest show, right? Because it's Caitlin Clark in Indianapolis. And that city and that franchise has really gotten involved there. And I look at the Pacers, and they're kind of doing the same thing. Where it's like, yeah, Indiana should have a top-level basketball team. This feels right, doesn't it? It's like the Midwest basketball thing, and I think that's fun. And I like how that's been presented to us. I think it's like Midwest country basketball love against like urban New York. I don't know if New York really counts East Coast. I'm assuming it does. But you know how it is. Like, somebody in Ohio would say they're Midwest, but somebody in Nebraska would say Ohio isn't, and they are. You know what I mean? But it's really cool how that's been presented. And I think the NBA is doing a really good job of marketing it with the identity of the city and of the state it's in and the fan base. And I think that's really cool. And I would like to see the NBA do that more because that makes it a more passionate product. It makes it feel like a bigger deal. And that's what gives you bigger moments. If I'm them, I'm making sure that Tyrese Halliburton choke is everywhere. Him doing the choke, the Reggie Miller, that should be everywhere. Because that Reggie Miller picture was iconic and it was everywhere. And the same thing with Tyrese Halliburton. If the Pacers win this series, that needs to be everywhere. And even if they lose, it needs to be everywhere because it's like, wow, he did that in game one, and guess what? They didn't win the series. He choked. See what I mean? No matter what, it's a win-win with this. And that's what we got to talk about. The Pacers won game one in the most dramatic fashion possible, and at that point, I was sold on the fact they're going to win the series. Now, granted, you should never overreact to game one. I understand that. But to win it, hit the Reggie Miller choke sign, and have Aaron Nesmith have the game of his career. Bonkers. And then game two, they won again. Knicks played a great game three, no doubt about it. And I'm very excited for tonight. But they're in Indianapolis again. And I just don't see the Pacers losing back-to-back games at home. I don't. And you were like, okay, well, the Knicks lost back-to-back games at MSG. I understand that. But I just feel like the Pacers almost feel like just a team of destiny. I mean, everybody's seen that stat now where it's like they have three of the four biggest comebacks in playoff history. Like, in the same year, keep in mind. It's insane. They just kind of feel like the chosen team. Like, it just feels like there's something about them. They play such an odd brand of basketball. They play differently than pretty much every other team. And that's what I really like about where we're at right now, because there was a moment there where it felt like the NBA was becoming very homogenous. Everything was becoming the same. Every team just wanted to play the same. And we've seen this playoffs that we are diversifying again. The Knicks play a very different brand of basketball than the Indiana Pacers, who also play a different brand of basketball than the Cleveland Cavaliers, who also play a different brand of basketball than the Boston Celtics. And we're getting a different vibe. The Pistons play very differently than these other teams, and I like that. I think that's good. It was terrifying for a second there that looked like we were all just going to start playing like the Celtics. And that would be the worst thing ever because, ugh. And you look at the numbers, and you're getting high rankings in the conference finals. Is it just because it's the Knicks, or is there a part of it where your general audience is more interested in this brand of basketball the Pacers and the Knicks are playing than they were the Boston Celtics for the last few years because they've consistently been in the conference finals? I think that factors in, right? And once again, we go back to people were like, oh, well, it's Halliburton versus Brunson, not exactly big stars like we have over there in the West. There was a bit of chatter about that. And I look at it and I think, but does that matter? Because I mean, at some point, if you do a really good job marketing it off of identity and team history, the star players kind of become a moot point, right? Because I don't just care about the fact it's Brunson versus Halliburton. I care about the fact it's Knicks versus Pacers. And to me, that's more important. That creates a healthier fan base and viewership for the NBA because your general audience doesn't just care about the players, they care about the teams. And here's the thing. Players come and go, teams are there forever, right? And if you can market the teams itself, then now you're really rolling. And that's kind of the thing with the NBA. They've always marketed very player heavy. I mean, even go back to Magic Bird, obviously like the rivalry in the NBA. And that was a big piece of it was obviously Celtics Lakers, but it was very heavily marketed as Magic Bird. It was as much Magic Bird as it was Celtics Lakers, right? And I think the NFL does a really good job of it doesn't matter who's on the teams. When it's Packers Bears, it's a big damn deal. It doesn't matter who the quarterbacks are, it's a big damn deal. Now, do they still have some player-led rivalries? Of course. Bills Chiefs is a rivalry because it's Allen Mahomes. Now, granted, in 20 years, is Bills Chiefs still going to be a rivalry because we're going to remember all those years of Allen versus Mahomes? Who knows? We'll see, right? But I think of Knicks Pacers, I'm just really happy with how that series has went because it's been absurdly entertaining. That game one was an incredible game that we're going to talk about for a very long time because not only was it the Neesmith game, but it was the Tyrese Halliburton busting out the choke game, and they won in overtime, and it was crazy. Crazy game. First game at MSG in the series. Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals. Also, shout out Timothy Chalamet. He's been on all the games. He's traveled to Indianapolis to watch the Knicks, and I just love what he's doing. It's awesome. Definitely deserves the role of Vincent Hanna. I think he would kill it, but shout out to Chalamet. But I'm just really pleased how the NBA's marketed it, and I get it's harder to market Thunder Timberwolves because it's two franchises that aren't that successful, and I understand that. But I think you could lean into more of the history with Kevin Garnett and the Timberwolves and how that was a rough patch. And then, obviously with the Thunder, you lean into the fact that they've been in this situation before with a very young team that looked like they were going to win the finals. And then obviously they met LeBron James and they never made it back. And I guess you don't want to lean into, hey, you know who also was up 3-1 in the finals? I mean, not the finals, but the Western Conference Finals. And then, what happened there back in 2016? Because obviously the Thunder blew a 3-1 lead to the Warriors back in 2016. I get you don't want to lean into some of that history, but I think you should. I think you should point out these things, and you create a smarter product that I think when you market it off of franchises and their identities, then you create more longtime fans instead of just, well, that guy's my favorite player. Wherever he goes, I go. Which I do the same thing, right? Like, I love Jokic. I do. And I love Jokic more than I like the Nuggets. But it's really hard, I think, to watch any professional sport without a team. Like, I know some guys like that, and at some point it's just not as fun, right? It's really fun to have a team. And I went that for a period with the MLB where I just didn't have a team. And I wasn't really sure which my team was. And then I, kind of decided, no, I really do have a soft spot for the Guardians. Those are my guys. And it's just more fun to have somebody doesn't matter who's on that team, I'm rooting for them. And that's, it is me and the Pistons, and that's what's fun. So, obviously it's like that with the Panthers, but, whew. I've been trying to lately not mention the Panthers on, because it's like try not to mention the Panthers challenge impossible for me. But I just consistently end up doing it. I don't know how, all right. Anyways, I'm excited for Pacers Knicks. I do think we're at a point where the only team I think that can beat the Thunder left in this playoffs are the Indiana Pacers. They just are very unique. They're very weird. They just feel dangerous, right? You feel like you can't really count them out at any point. And I get the Knicks, have these great comebacks from being down 20. And I picked the Knicks to win the finals beginning of the year. And if they played the Thunder, would I pick them to win? Potentially, right? Because I would be trying to convince myself, but Overall, I just think the Pacers are the team to do it. I think if there's any team that can, it's the Pacers because they can match them defensively. I think they have guys who can step up in big moments, and they're just very unique. And I think that uniqueness will mess up OKC. If not, we get in a scary situation with Shai. I've said it before, but he's 26 years old. If they win the finals, and he is not only an MVP and a finals MVP, it's going to be scary fast because it's 26 years old. LeBron won a finals at 27, and MJ won his first finals at 27. Shai's going to have a championship before either of them. Like, I'm not saying he's going to be LeBron or Michael Jordan. That's not what I'm saying. But I am just saying it just puts him in weird conversations fast because he's 26, won 60-plus games back-to-back years, has an MVP, has a championship, has most likely a finals MVP, and it's just like, whoa, because he's probably going to have 8 to 10 more years of being a top 10 player in the NBA, and it's like, okay, well, what is this guy going to do in his career? Like, what are his accolades going to look like when it's all said and done? It's going to be really, really freaky, really fast if they win the finals. And honestly, I hope the Pacers can beat them if the Pacers get to the NBA Finals. But that's it for the NBA. I'm going to talk real quick. This weekend went and saw Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning. It was super fun. If you have any interest in seeing this, I would go see it. Don't let the 3 hour and 50 minutes... Oh, not 3 hours and 50 minutes. Sorry, 2 hour and 50 minute runtime. Gosh, that'd be so long. 2 hour and 50 minute runtime dissuade you. Like, it was awesome. Opening 40 minutes are a little slower because they got to set everything up. But after that, it just becomes watch us do all these incredible stunts and be amazed. And I really loved it. I thought it was awesome. It was one of those where the night I saw it, Genevieve and I went together and we were just like, oh, that was fun. I liked it. And then the next day we were like, wait, was that kind of awesome? And then by the day after that, we were like, that was really good. So it's the longer it sat with me, the more and more I've liked it. Very excited about Top Gun 3. They were talking about it. I was kind of out, but after seeing this, I'm actually in. Because not only is my guy Glenn Powell most likely going to be in it, but I just have an utmost faith in Tom Cruise to deliver something that's of quality. He really, really cares about movies and, you know, what they can be and how they are important. And I mean, even though he's like clearly a crazy man, I just think he's fun, and I think he truly wants like the medium of film to be represented in its best form. And I gotta respect that, right? And I think he's always trying to put something out that he's proud of, and that's really cool. And he has a lot of power as a not only potentially with his Scientology stuff, but he has a lot of power within the films he makes and like the decisions that get to be made, and he uses that, I think, to try to create something that's really quality. And this movie really impressed me because there is a sequence, the submarine sequence, the underwater sequence, is just incredible. It's like 20 minutes with only one line of dialogue. And it's basically a silent film, honestly. And I was completely riveted the whole way. You could hear a pin drop in my theater. Everyone there was locked in. And I think he just really understands what creates raw entertainment. And I love my guy Glenn Powell. I want Glenn to be on this level someday. And I think he's definitely working there. I mean, that's like Tom Cruise's chosen guy. And Tom Cruise just really understands what makes movies great. And is he making, you know, the best movie every year? No, I don't think so. But is he trying his best to create something that is great and fun to watch and you feel like you have to go see in a theater? Yes. Did he make the best movie of 2022? Debatably, right? Like, Top Gun Maverick is incredible. And this has big swings. Is it as good as Top Gun Maverick? No, it's not. It doesn't have as much heart as Top Gun Maverick. But is it a great movie? I say yes. If you were like, hey, let's watch Mission Impossible Final Reckoning Night, I'd be like, yeah, it's good. And I think it's ironic that the whole plot revolves around defeating AI. You know, it's Tom Cruise doing all these real stunts, and it's talking about defeating AI. It was just kind of ironic when you think about all the stuff he likes to do with movies. And yeah, I'm really glad the movie's been successful. It's crazy to me how successful Lilo and Stitch is. Like, RJ might win the movie draft because both these movies are doing very well, and I don't understand. Like, how is Lilo and Stitch making this much money? Like, I get it, people like, but like, what? Do they realize the movie you can watch? It's all right. For what it's worth, if you really wanted to go see Lilo and Stitch, it's fine. I get it, right? I completely get, oh, I think it's fun to go see the live action remakes. I like it. Fine, but 341 million on Memorial Day weekend for a movie that is a remake? I'm in shock. But Final Reckoning's doing well, and I'm happy with that. And yeah, yeah, the plane sequence at the end is also awesome. Don't get me wrong, but the submarine sequence really stood out because I'm like, he's really trying to create something special every time. And last night, Genevieve and I rewatched one of probably a movie that's like top 25 all time for me. It's in the Ryan Klinger Film Hall of Fame, La La Land. And every time I watch La La Land, I think this is a special movie. This movie really cares about what it's doing. It feels like a classic. First time you watch it, it just feels like a classic. It has like a timeless quality to it. It feels like an old school musical, but it's completely contemporary, set in modern times, and it just works. And it just kind of made me think, people get all bent out of shape, and they're like, oh, there's no more great films. We need more original films. I think we're still doing some really special stuff. La La Land came out 9 years ago, and it's superb. It is superb. And I think there's a lot of good elements in Final Reckoning, and I think you look at this upcoming slate of movies we have, like the big movies of this summer, I think we're going to see some really interesting things. And even though they're in big franchises, I think we're using these big franchise vehicles to create something very interesting. Now, La La Land, obviously, completely original, and that's awesome. And I obviously want more of that. But I am saying I think there's a difference between the new Jurassic World and a remake of Lilo and Stitch. Because the new Jurassic World is going to have new ideas, and Gareth Edwards is going to try to take us on a new journey in the world Jurassic World, right? Whereas Lilo and Stitch is just a remake of a movie we've already seen. And I just think one of these things I'm much more supportive of than the other, because I think you can use these big franchises to create new, original, quality films. And like I think about 28 years later, very excited to see what they do with this one, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how successful that movie is and how many new ideas it has. And I don't know if I'm going to see it, but I'm very interested to see how that performs, just because I'm not a big horror movie guy. But you look at the other big movies, Superman, people have been getting on it, they're like, oh, it looks weird, I don't know if I like cinematography. Okay, well, we're doing something different, right? And everybody says how much they want new original stuff. They don't want the same old, same old. Well, here we are trying to do something different, right? And I look at the Fantastic Four. It has a unique art direction. It has that, like, futuristic 60s look to it, and I really like that. We're doing some new, interesting stuff, even in your big franchise films. And then you look at, we're hearing incredible things about weapons, which has been described as like a Magnolia-style horror film. And I'm just like, okay. But like Jordan Peele said, it's like amazing. Like he really wanted to produce it or whatever. And that's a new original concept. Obviously, that movie Jordan Peele is producing, the Him movie, the football movie, that's a new original concept. Then we have Paul Thomas Anderson's new movie. It's completely original. Like, I think we're actually in a really good spot. I was thinking about watching Final Reckoning. I'm like, this is a $400 million budgeted blockbuster that has a 20-minute sequence with one line of dialogue. And it was a real stunt. And we're fighting AI. I was just like, I think we're actually in a better place than people realize. I think people get very negative about movies and are like, oh, well, blah, 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 blah. Like, we'll never be back in the golden age of Hollywood. The studios are blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I get it. And I get, like, people get frustrated. But, I mean, I do too. I've done that before. But, I don't know, I think there's a lot more good to be seen. And if you watch Final Reckoning, I think you get it. Like, does Final Reckoning have the best, character writing we've ever seen? No. Like, there's definitely Mission Impossible's better character writing. But are there moments of it that are really special? Yeah, I would say so. There's some really high-quality moments in this movie. I give Tom Cruise credit because he really seems to care about delivering something new and original through whatever he's doing. So, Gotta give credit where credit's due. But I just think we got some good stuff right now. Really do. And How to Train Your Dragon remake is also coming out. Yeah, so, then there's that. Makes me feel good about drafting that one for the movie draft, because if everyone's going to see Lilo and Stitch, like, they might as well go see that too, right? Woohoo! I don't know. I just think it's odd. Everybody's, like, all bent out of shape when, like, just 2 years ago, Barbie and Oppenheimer was a massive success. And I get Barbie's technically a brand, but, like, basically a wholly original film. So I'm just saying, be more positive. Enjoy what we're doing. Like, when Glenn Powell remakes Backdraft, I'm not going to be pissed, because I'm willing to bet it's going to be Backdraft in the fact that it's about firefighters and it's called Backdraft. I'm willing to bet it's not going to be a shot-for-shot remake. It'll probably be kind of like Twisters. Backdrafts? Okay, on that, we're done. I'll see you all in the next one. Enjoy Pacers-Knicks. If you want to watch Timberwolves Thunder, be my guest. But Pacers-Knicks, it's going to be cinema. I want the Pacers to go on to beat Thunder in the finals. And that's actually what I'm viewing at this point. I think that's what's going to happen. See you all in the next one.